Eden 47 was a human colony.
Population 1.8 million. And then overnight it went silent. Not the normal silence of deep space, but the kind that screams something is wrong. No traffic vectors, no orbital chatter, no heat blooms, no distress beacon. Just nothing. At the edge of the system, the Kithari Concord observation vessel drifted in, its sensors unfolding like metallic petals. Observer strategist Vale San leaned forward as the scans ran. Once, twice. And the results didn't change. The colony wasn't quiet. It was gone. Debris floated in high orbit, shattered station rings, torn hull plating, defense drones split clean in half. A graveyard of infrastructure, still slowly spinning in vacuum. Vale San's throat membranes pulsed faint violet. Run the scan again. The ship complied. Same answer. A cold blue planet, and the wreckage of everything that used to protect it. Then the long-range life scan returned, and the number made the command chamber feel smaller. Fewer than 5,000 survivors, from nearly 2 million. And that's when Vale San understood this wasn't piracy. This wasn't war. This was a message. The Kithari Concord did not intervene in conflicts beyond its borders. That was doctrine. Observation preserved our interest. Not because they were powerful, because they were strange. They had arrived on the galactic stage barely 2 centuries ago. Loud, emotional, technologically creative, but politically chaotic. Their expansion pattern defied logic. Small colonies scattered across enormous distances, often lightly defended, economically inefficient, culturally independent, and yet they survived. Where older civilizations collapsed under internal strain, humans adapted. Where empires centralized, humans diversified. Where species sought stability, humans tolerated instability as if it were a natural state, unpredictable, difficult to model, potentially dangerous. Eden 47 had been one of their outer colonies, classified as low strategic value by Concord analysts, which meant something very important. If someone attacked it, they had done so deliberately. Magnify orbital layer 3. Vale San ordered. The holographic projection expanded. Fragments rotated slowly through vacuum. A human station module burned through the core. Defense drones sheared cleanly in half. Cargo haulers ruptured outward, as if destroyed from within. Energy signatures, he asked. Multiple, replied the ship intelligence. Primary weapon type. Coherent plasma lances. Secondary. Gravitic shear events. Vale San's membranes tightened. Gravitic weapons. That narrowed the suspects. Cross-reference known hostile civilizations within 300 light years. The chamber filled with icons. Then one pulsed brighter than the others. The Varkish Dominion. Expansionist. Hierarchical. Militaristic. Efficient. And very, very confident. As the observation vessel approached Eden 47, the true scale of the disaster became clear. The colony had once been built across a vast coastal plain. Human cities were visible even from orbit. Angular grids, transport rails, agricultural rings stretching inland. Now half the continent was scorched black. Orbital bombardment scars marked the landscape like claw wounds. Entire urban regions had been turned to glass. Atmospheric ash clouds still drifted across the oceans, but there were no fires, no emergency transponders, no organized evacuation signatures. Life signs? Vale San asked. A long pause. Scattered. Extremely low density. Estimated survivors. Fewer than 5,000, from nearly 2 million. The chamber dinged slightly as the gravity of the number settled. Begin passive surface monitoring. He said quietly. The Concord did not interfere, but they would watch. 3 hours later, they found the first survivors. A cluster of humans had gathered near the ruins of what appeared to be a medical complex. Temporary shelters constructed from debris. Heat signatures from small combustion fires. Primitive. Manual. Desperate. Vale San observed through magnified imaging. A human child sat on a piece of broken concrete, staring upward at the sky. At nothing. There were no ships coming. No orbital traffic. No rescue. The child didn't cry. That detail disturbed the observer more than the devastation. Humans usually cried. Data analysis continued. The assault had been precise and overwhelming. Phase 1. Orbital defense elimination. Phase 2. Communication blackout. Phase 3.
Targeted infrastructure destruction. Phase 4.
Population centers neutralized. Minimal ground deployment. Minimal resource expenditure the Dominion had not intended to occupy. This was a message. The transmission buoy was discovered at the Lagrange point between Eden 47 and its moon. It was not human. The design was sharp, geometric, armored against tampering. The signal broadcast continuously across multiple frequencies. The Concord intelligence decrypted it within minutes. A holographic figure appeared tall, armored, plated in dark composite material, a Varkish commander. His voice was deep and metallic. This system has been purged by the authority of the Varkish Dominion.
The human species is hereby notified. Expansion beyond your core territories is no longer tolerated. Your colonies lack defensive capacity.
Your species lacks strategic discipline. Further attempts to settle contested regions will result in identical action. This was a demonstration. The message looped. Calm, clinical, confident. Vale San replayed it several times.
Then he asked the question that had begun to form in his thoughts. Was Earth notified? Yes. The ship intelligence replied.
Transmission relay indicates the message was forwarded to Terran space 12 standard hours ago. 12 hours. Not long, but long enough for humans to respond. The Concord maintained a network of long-range observation nodes. They turned one towards Sol, the human home system. Data lag would delay real-time observation, but faster courier relays were already en route. In the meantime, analysts reviewed historical human response patterns. The results were inconsistent. Sometimes humans negotiated. Sometimes they retaliated. Sometimes they did nothing. Sometimes they overreacted. There was no stable predictive model, but one variable mattered most. Humans reacted differently when civilians were attacked, especially when children were involved. It came unexpectedly. A weak signal from the planet's surface, low power, improvised.
Barely above background noise. A human voice, cracked.
Exhausted.
Still steady. This is Eden 47 emergency broadcast. If anyone receives this.
Static, wind, distant structural collapse, colony status, catastrophic loss, civilian casualties, extensive. A pause, then. We are still here. Another pause, the voice softened. We don't know if Earth can hear us, but we're holding on. The transmission repeated. Again and again, every 20 minutes, even though no one answered. 31 hours after the attack, the Concord's relay buoy from Sol arrived. Vale San stood as the data unfolded. The report was brief, too brief. Earth response status. Active Terran defense condition. Level Black Fleet mobilization. Confirmed civilian media access. Restricted diplomatic channels. Silent Vale San blinked. Level Black? He asked. The ship intelligence accessed Terran military archives. Definition. Maximum wartime mobilization. Historically declared only 3 times. What triggered previous declarations?
2 planetary invasions. 1 extinction-level asteroid event. Vale San looked back at the ruined world of Eden 47. Then at the casualty estimate. Then at the number of survivors still broadcasting into the void.
Did the Dominion know? He asked quietly. No answer came, because the data that followed made something very clear. The Dominion had not attacked a colony. They had attacked something humans considered part of their home. Hours passed. Then days. No Terran ships arrived. No communications reached Eden 47. The survivors kept broadcasting. The Dominion message continued looping. The system remained empty. And then the Concord's long-range gravitation sensors detected a fluctuation. Not a ship. Not a fleet. Something else. A ripple, deep space distortion. Far beyond the outer system boundary. Vale San leaned forward. Source unknown, replied the ship intelligence.
Mass displacement inconsistent with conventional propulsion. The ripple grew, not moving fast,
but expanding, as if something enormous was bending space on its way in. On the surface of Eden 47. The child who had been staring at the sky saw it first. A new star. It hadn't been there yesterday. It wasn't bright. It was wrong. The adults noticed seconds later. Someone whispered, "Is that
a ship?" No, it was too large, too dim, too slow. The emergency transmitter crackled again. Unknown object entering system. Trajectory.
Inbound from Sol. A long silence, then a voice trembling. Earth heard us. In orbit, Vale San watched the distortion grow, and for the first time since arriving, he felt something rare among the Concorde. Uncertainty, because the object coming from Earth was not shaped like a fleet, it was shaped like an answer.
And whatever humanity had decided to send, it was coming alone. The object did not enter the Eden 47 system. It arrived. There was no flare of engines, no deceleration burn, no formation of escort vessels. Space simply
Changed. The distortion Vale San had been tracking for 17 hours reached a critical density just beyond the system's heliopause. Gravitational readings spiked.
Sensor arrays compensated automatically, recalibrating against what should have been impossible mass displacement. Then the distortion folded inward, not exploded, not opened, collapsed, and something emerged from the absence. At first, the object did not resolve as a ship. It was too large, too structurally complex, too
quiet. Vale San stood motionless as the projection clarified.
Length 92 kilometers, mass. Classified beyond standard naval architecture ranges, energy output, dormant baseline levels, yet exceeding that of a standard fleet cluster hull composition. Unknown layered composite, adaptive refractive properties. The vessel's silhouette resembled no known Terran design. Human ships tended toward modular construction, visible engines, exposed weapon platforms, distinct habitation rings. This structure was seamless, continuous, a single engineered mass. Its surface absorbed light rather than reflecting it.
Sections of the hull shifted subtly, as if adjusting to environmental conditions. Sensor returns flickered unpredictably, suggesting active electromagnetic suppression. The ship did not broadcast identification. It did not announce arrival. It did not deploy escorts. It simply began moving toward the inner system at a steady, controlled velocity.
Designation? Vale San asked. The Concorde intelligence accessed Terran fleet registries. There was only one match. TDS Aegis of Earth classification. Strategic response platform operational status. Rear deployment construction origin. Sol system orbital foundries authorization requirement. Planetary Council unanimous vote. Vale San felt his membranes tighten. Humans had voted unanimously.
The Concorde maintained passive intelligence agreements with several Terran diplomatic channels. Normally, human political systems were noisy debates, broadcasts, commentary, dissent. Now, there was silence, not censorship. Unity, archive transcripts began arriving via delayed relay. The Terran Planetary Council emergency session had lasted 42 minutes.
The first speaker had been the Colonial Affairs Director. We have confirmed population loss exceeding 97%. The second speaker, Defense Command. Dominion forces withdrew immediately after strike.
No occupation. The third speaker, civilian representative from the Pacific Union. There are still survivors. A pause had followed. Then Earth's Secretary General had spoken.
Then this is not a lost colony. Another pause. This is an attack on our people. Vote results. Authorize strategic response platform deployment outcome. Unanimous, no further debate.
No negotiation attempts. No diplomatic message sent to the Dominion. Earth had not responded with words. Earth had responded with mass on Eden 47's surface. The sky changed. The new star grew larger each hour. Even through atmospheric haze, its silhouette became visible, a dark, elongated shape crossing the sun's glare. Some survivors wept. Others stood silently. The emergency broadcast continued.
Object now confirmed as Terran origin. Estimated arrival to orbital insertion. 14 hours. Someone in the background asked, "Is it a fleet?"
The operator hesitated. No, silence. Then, quietly, "It's just one ship." No one spoke after that. Across the border region, deep within Varkish territory, Dominion intelligence received the same detection data. Human response. One vessel. No fleet mobilization visible. No diplomatic protest. No military build-up along shared boundaries. Dominion Strategic Council convened briefly. Assessment. Human response. Symbolic threat level. Minimal recommended action. Ignore unless escalation occurs. The Dominion doctrine was simple. Power was measured in fleets, and humanity had sent one ship.
Vale San did not share the Dominion's confidence. He had been studying human expansion for 12 cycles. Humans were inefficient in many ways, but they were never wasteful during crisis. If Earth had committed a planetary-level authorization, one ship was not a symbol. One ship was a decision. Begin deep structural scan, he ordered. The Concorde's sensors focused on the approaching vessel. Results were confusing. Internal compartments extended far beyond external volume estimates. As distribution fluctuated as internal sections reconfigured, energy storage readings suggested multiple redundant reactor cores and dormant, some cycling at fractional output, and buried deep within the structure were layered containment fields surrounding something the sensors could not penetrate. Unknown systems, unknown purpose, unknown limits. The Aegis of Earth did not hurry. It entered Eden 47's orbit with deliberate precision, selecting a high-altitude insertion path that minimized debris collision risk before any weapons deployed. Before any system activated, a transmission began. Not military encryption, not command frequency. Open band, planet-wide. The voice was calm. Human, female, Eden 47. This is the Terran strategic platform Aegis of Earth. The transmission repeated in multiple human languages. Then, we hear you. On the surface, survivors fell silent. Some dropped to their knees. The operator at the emergency transmitter couldn't speak for several seconds. Finally,
You came. The response came immediately. Yes. A pause. Then, we're here to bring you home.
orbital analysis revealed something unexpected. The Aegis did not deploy weapons. It deployed shuttles. Hundreds of them. Large armored atmospheric transports descended through the cloud layers, targeting survivor clusters identified by thermal imaging medical teams, evacuation crews, portable atmospheric scrubbers, field hospitals. Within 3 hours, organized rescue operations were underway across 3 continents. Vale San watched carefully. There were no signs of urgency driven by fear. The humans moved with something else. Focus, precision, and a quiet, controlled anger while rescue operations continued. The Concorde detected another change. The Aegis began drawing power slowly, incrementally. External hull panels shifted position, exposing radiative structures. Internal mass redistribution increased. Energy output rose, but still far below maximum. Vale San requested predictive modeling. The ship intelligence responded. Current energy accumulation exceeds requirements for defensive posture. How much?
He asked, equivalent to the fleet-scale offensive deployment. But no weapons had been activated. Not yet. Over the next 12 hours, evacuation continued. The final surface broadcast came from the original emergency operator, last transport departing Sector 12. He hesitated, looked at the ruined horizon, then said to whoever did this. He stopped, then finished quietly. Earth knows. The channel went silent. Eden 47 was empty. Only after the final transport docked did the Aegis transmit again. This time, the signal was directed outward, wideband, high power, interstellar capable, destination. Varkish Dominion territory. The message was simple. No threats, no demands, no diplomatic language, just coordinates and a statement. Eden 47 has been evacuated. Pause. We will now address the demonstration.
Vale San stared at the growing energy readings inside the Terran vessel, then at the Dominion's previous assessment, then at the system map the Aegis was repositioning. Not toward the colony, not toward the survivors, toward the outer system, toward empty space. Why there?
He asked. The ship intelligence calculated trajectories, then paused, then recalculated, then displayed the answer. Projected target vector. Dominion Frontier Infrastructure Network Range. Extreme method. Unknown. Vale San felt something cold move through his thoughts because the energy levels inside the human ship were still rising, and the Aegis had not yet deployed a single weapon. Far across the border, Dominion long-range sensors detected a sudden spike of gravitational distortion. Source: Eden 47 system. Origin: single Terran vessel. Dominion Command issued a routine monitoring alert. No defensive mobilization. No strategic response. After all, it was only one ship. Back in orbit over the ruined world, Vale San whispered.
They think this is retaliation. Energy levels crossed another threshold. Internal containment fields inside the Aegis locked into a new configuration.
Space around the vessel began to bend, and for the first time since humanity had entered the galactic stage, the Concorde's predictive models failed completely, because whatever Earth had sent, it wasn't preparing to fight a war, it was preparing to redefine what a response meant.
Space did not react well to what the humans were doing around the Aegis of Earth. The vacuum had begun to behave like a strained fabric. Sensor beams bent slightly, of course.
Background radiation warped around the vessel in subtle arcs. Even the distant stars behind it appeared faintly distorted, their positions shifting by fractions of a degree to most civilizations. This level of energy manipulation would have required an entire battle fleet. The Aegis remained alone.
Observer strategist Vale San stood in the command chamber of the Zarin Kel, watching the readings update in real time.
The chamber was quiet, except for the soft harmonic tones of Concorde analytical systems attempting unsuccessfully to model what they were seeing. Status, he said, energy accumulation continues. The ship intelligence replied, containment field density increasing. Internal mass redistribution at 80% completion. Completion for what? There was a brief delay, unknown, in Varkish territory. The reaction remained measured. Dominion Strategic Council convened again when the first gravitational anomalies were detected.
Reports described a localized distortion field around the Terran vessel unusual, but still within theoretical weapon development ranges. Their assessment remained unchanged. Single platform.
No escort fleet.
No forward staging.
No logistical chain. Dominion doctrine classified the situation as localized symbolic escalation, recommended response. Monitor. Do not redeploy major assets. Avoid granting the human strategic relevance. The Dominion had fought empires older than humanity's entire recorded history. One ship did not concern them. The Cathari Concorde did not share that certainty. Vale San requested full historical analysis of Terran conflict doctrine. The results were troubling. Human warfare did not follow traditional scaling models. When humans deployed fleets, they behaved predictably: defensive screens, strike formations, attrition management. But when humans deployed single assets with extraordinary political authorization, the historical pattern showed something else entirely. Examples. The Helios Mirror Incident. One solar lens array used to disable an entire pirate coalition by sterilizing their shipyards. The Titan Lockdown. One orbital mass driver network that prevented a planetary invasion without firing a single shot by making landing mathematically impossible. The Lunar Silence Event. Classified. Outcome. Hostile fleet withdrew without engagement. Human doctrine had a term for such deployments. Deterrence through demonstration. Vale San studied the phrase, then looked again at the energy levels inside the Aegis and realized something unsettling. The demonstration had not started yet. The Concorde could not penetrate the deepest internal layers of the Terran vessel, but partial structural inference revealed massive reconfiguration. Sections of the ship were shifting inward, collapsing modular space into dense containment regions. Reactor clusters were synchronizing. Quantum anchor points were aligning along a single vector. Everything inside the Aegis was orienting toward one direction, the Dominion frontier. But there was something else. Something the Concorde's intelligence flagged as anomalous. The power curve. It wasn't exponential, it was emotional. For the first time since arrival, the Concorde intercepted internal Terran communication leaks, low-priority civilian channels routed through the Aegis network. Not military, not classified. Personal messages from evacuated survivors being transmitted back to Earth. Fragments appeared in the chamber. MOM, we're safe. The sky was on fire, but they came. Tell Dad the doctors say I'll keep the leg. They took us of the planet. It's all gone. Everything's gone. But Earth sent something big. Really big. Then one message, sent by the emergency broadcast operator. They didn't come angry. Pause. They came quiet. Another pause. That's what scares me. Vale San felt his membranes tighten again, because Concorde psychology archives noted a critical human behavioral trait. Humans shouted when emotional. Humans argued when uncertain. Humans went quiet when they had made a decision. Calculate projected.
Output if current energy accumulation is released. Vale San ordered. The ship intelligence processed, then stopped, then restarted with expanded parameters.
Result exceeds local system energy stability limits. Clarify if released without modulation. Output would destabilize planetary orbits within target region. Vale San froze. That would be extinction-level warfare. Correct. Humans would not do that. The intelligence paused, then replied, Historical precedent indicates humans avoid extinction-level actions when civilians are present. Another pause, then, Dominion frontier installations contain no civilian population. The chamber grew colder, the Aegis repositioned again, now aligned precisely with a deep space vector between EN-47 and Dominion territory. No line of sight target, no visible enemy, just empty interstellar space. Then new structures extended from the vessel's hull long, segmented arrays that unfolded like skeletal wings, gravitational anchor emitters, but configured in a pattern that made no tactical sense, unless run trajectory modeling. Vale San said quickly. The Concord intelligence projected the alignment path. It extended beyond Dominion space, beyond known trade routes, beyond anything strategically valuable, until it intersected with something far older, a region known as the Karth Expanse, a dense interstellar debris field left behind by a long-dead civilization.
Asteroids, metallic fragments,
Planetary remnants, millions of objects drifting in unstable gravitational patterns. The Concord had catalogued it centuries ago, uninhabited, unimportant, except for one detail. Total estimated mass. Equivalent to a small moon. Vale San spoke slowly. They're not charging a weapon. No, they're charging a
mass driver. Yes, but there's no ammunition. The intelligence ran one final simulation.
Then displayed the answer, projected human action. Remote gravitational capture of debris mass from Karth Expanse projected result. Formation of controlled relativistic kinetic body estimated mass. 3.2 trillion tons projected velocity. 12% light speed projected impact energy. The number did not fit on the display. It took 6 more hours for Dominion deep-range sensors to detect the growing gravitational disturbances in the Karth Expanse. Their analysts assumed it was a natural cascade event. Then the debris began moving, not drifting, accelerating. Thousands of objects poured into alignment along a single vector, toward Dominion frontier space. Dominion Strategic Council convened immediately, threat classification upgraded, fleet mobilization ordered, estimated interception time. Too late, the Aegis transmitted again. This time, the message was directed to Dominion command frequencies. It was not loud. It was not aggressive. It was calm. A human voice, male, older. This is Earth. Pause. You demonstrated what you could do to a colony. Another pause. We are demonstrating what we can do without a fleet. Dominion command attempted to respond. The transmission continued over them. The object currently forming beyond your frontier will arrive in 31 hours. It is targeted for an uninhabited military logistics region. No civilian population. Another pause. Then, this is not an attack. Silence. Then the final line. This is scale. Vale San stared at the projected kinetic mass forming across interstellar space. Then at the lone human vessel hovering quietly above a dead colony. Then at the evacuation logs, the medical transports, the personal messages, the calm voices. Humans had spent 2 days rescuing survivors, and while they were doing it, they had been building a moon. Energy levels inside the Aegis reached maximum containment. Gravitational anchors locked across light years of space. The captured debris mass compressed further, forming a dense, artificial body glowing faintly from internal friction. Velocity continued increasing. Dominion interception fleets launched. They would not arrive in time. Inside the Concord observation chamber, the intelligence spoke again, updated analysis. Object impact will not destroy the target system. Vale San exhaled slowly. What will it do? Pause, then. It will remove the Dominion's entire frontier infrastructure network. A moment later, in one event, Dominion Command issued an emergency transmission, demanding negotiations, demanding the projectile be halted, demanding human response. For the first time since Eden 47, Earth answered immediately. The same calm voice spoke. We evacuated our colony before we acted. Pause. You had the same opportunity. And then the Aegis shut down all outward communications. Inside the Concorde vessel, Vale San whispered,
"They're not angry anymore. The kinetic mass crossed the final acceleration threshold. Relativistic velocity achieved. Estimated time to impact. 8 hours. And there was nothing in the galaxy fast enough to stop it."
The Dominion had 8 hours for an empire that measured time in centuries. It was nothing for the officers inside Dominion's strategic command. It was eternity. The target zone lay along the Varkish Dominion's outer logistics belt, a web of shipyards, fuel depots, supply anchors,
and military relay stations spread across 6 adjacent star systems. There were no cities, no civilian habitats, no cultural worlds. Just infrastructure, the spine of their expansion. Within minutes of Earth's transmission, Dominion Command issued a full emergency order. Operation Iron Shield, all available interceptor fleets were redirected.
gravitic dampening arrays activated.
Orbital mass dispersal weapons powered up devices designed to break apart incoming asteroids and kinetic weapons. The Dominion had faced kinetic strikes before. They had stopped them before. Then the updated velocity data arrived, and the room went quiet. Projected object speed, 0.1 to c.
Impact energy. Non-interceptable by conventional means. Estimated fragmentation threshold. Irrelevant even if broken apart. The fragments would carry extinction-level energy. One officer spoke the truth no one wanted to hear. Interception will only distribute the damage. Another added, if we engage it, we make it worse. For the first time in recorded Dominion history, Strategic Command issued a withdrawal order. Evacuate all frontier military personnel. They had 8 hours.
Observer strategist Vale San had witnessed was collapses and the quiet extinction of 3 minor species. He had never seen an empire evacuate itself. Dominion traffic flooded the border region.
Warships abandoned defensive formations to carry personnel.
Automated systems were left behind.
Entire shipyards powered down mid-operation. Not retreat. Not surrender. Survival. The Concorde intelligence displayed a summary. Total Dominion assets in target region. 412 orbital shipyards to 1,900 logistics platforms.
18 fleet anchor stations, 6 strategic fuel reserves, 1 primary frontier command hub. Estimated replacement time 27 standard years. Vale San stared at the number. Humans had not targeted population. They had targeted time. The Aegis of Earth remained motionless above Eden 47. Its massive energy systems were now quiet,
operating at baseline levels.
The gravitational anchors had completed their work. The projectile was no longer under active human control. It was simply physics.
Inside the vessel, human command staff monitored the long-range telemetry in silence. No celebration. No visible emotion, just confirmation checklists. A Concorde passive intercept caught a brief internal exchange. Dominion evacuation confirmed. Any civilian presence?
Negative. Pause. Then the commanding officer spoke. Maintain trajectory. 3 hours before impact, the Varkish Dominion opened a direct channel to Earth, not to the Aegis, to Sol itself.
It was the first time the Dominion had ever initiated direct communication with the human homeworld. The message was formal,
controlled,
carefully worded. Terran authorities. This action constitutes extreme strategic escalation. Dominion frontier assets are being evacuated to prevent unnecessary loss of life. We request immediate cessation of kinetic deployment and initiation of diplomatic negotiation. The response came 27 seconds later, not from military command, from the Terran Planetary Council.
A human voice, steady, calm. We acknowledge your evacuation. Pause. That is why the trajectory remains unchanged. Another pause. Negotiation will occur after demonstration is complete. The Concorde's analysts began compiling a behavioral profile. Human response pattern. Confirm civilian safety, avoid immediate retaliation, demonstrate overwhelming capability, allow adversary to observe consequences, negotiate from new reality. This was not rage. This was doctrine. Vale San accessed an old human historical archive.
A phrase appeared repeatedly in their military philosophy. Pieced through overwhelming certainty, across the Dominion frontier, the evacuation became frantic. Mass carriers departed overloaded. Personnel abandoned equipment.
Entire fleet elements withdrew deeper into core territory, but there were limits. Infrastructure could not be moved. Shipyards, fuel reserves,
Command stations, they would remain. Dominion commanders faced a terrible decision: stay and try to protect their installations, or leave and preserve their forces. They chose survival. Fleet withdrawal reached 96% completion. The frontier was empty, waiting 4 hours before impact. The object entered visible sensor range. It was no longer a debris cloud under relativistic compression and gravitational shaping. The captured mass had formed a dense, elongated body, its surface glowing faintly from internal friction and particle interactions. Length 38 kilometers, density, extreme trajectory, perfectly stable. At that velocity, it was no longer matter in the traditional sense. It was energy wearing a shape. Dominion long-range imaging transmitted the visual to command. One officer whispered, "It's a moon." Another corrected him, "No, it's a message. Vale San ran one final simulation. What would happen?" He asked the ship intelligence. If the humans had targeted a populated world, the system processed for several seconds, then displayed the answer. Planetary crust destabilization, atmospheric ignition risk, biosphere collapse probability. 93%. Vale San did not speak for a long time, because the humans hadn't done that. They could have. They hadn't. That choice mattered. The projectile entered the first target system at relativistic speed. There was no explosion at first, just a flash of distorted light as space itself struggled to adjust, then energy release. A shipyard the size of a continent vanished instantly. The shockwave expanded outward as plasma. Radiation and fragmented matter accelerated in every direction at thousands of kilometers per second. Orbital platforms disintegrated. Fuel reserves ignited. Secondary detonations cascaded across the system. The projectile did not stop. It passed through the system entirely, its trajectory carrying it onward into the next. System 2. System 3. Each impact was not a strike, it was a reset. By the time the kinetic body exited the secret system, the Dominion frontier infrastructure network no longer existed. Where once there had been expansion capability, there was debris. The event lasted 23 minutes, then it was over. No further human action. No follow-up strike. No fleet advance. The aegis of Earth remained where it had always been, above a dead colony, quiet, watching emergency damage reports flooded Dominion High Command. Loss assessment. Frontier expansion capability. Eliminated. Fleet supply chain. Disrupted strategic posture. Defensive for minimum 25 years. One senior strategist summarized the situation in a single sentence. Humanity did not attack us. Pause. They stopped us 1 hour after the final impact. Earth transmitted, not a threat, not a demand, a statement. Eden 47 was not defended because we believe distance provided safety. Pause. We will not make that mistake again. Another pause. Human colonies are not expendable. Final line. Demonstration complete. Diplomatic channels open. In the Concord observation chamber, Vale San finally understood the deeper pattern. Humans had not shown their full strength. They had shown restraint, which raised a far more dangerous question. If that was restraint, he whispered, what does human escalation look like? At that exact moment, Concord long-range sensors detected something unexpected. The aegis of Earth was moving, not toward Dominion space, not toward Sol. It was accelerating toward the Concord observation vessel, and it was hailing them directly. The signal arrived before the Concorde could decide whether to retreat. It was precise, focused, directed specifically at the Zarin Kell, not a broadcast, a greeting. Observer strategist Vale San stared at the incoming transmission as the human vessel, the immense aegis of Earth, adjusted its trajectory. The acceleration was modest, controlled, but the scale of the ship meant even gentle movement carried enormous inertia. It was not charging, it was approaching. Which was somehow more unsettling. Range? Vale San asked. Projected proximity? 100,000 kilometers in 42 minutes, replied the ship intelligence. That was close, uncomfortably close. Intent?
Transmission classified as diplomatic. The chamber remained silent for several seconds. Then Vale San said,
Open channel. The image that appeared was not what the Concord expected. No military uniform. No medals. No command insignia.
just a human woman in simple dark attire, seated at her plain console.
Her hair was streaked with grey. Her expression calm. Tired, perhaps, but steady. Observer vessel Zarin Kel, she said. This is Ambassador Lian Cortez, Terran strategic liaison aboard the Aegis of Earth. She inclined her head slightly. We know you've been watching. The Concord did not deny observation. They never did. Vale San stepped forward. I am Observer Strategist Vale San of the Kethari Concord. We maintain neutrality in regional conflicts. Cortez nodded. We know. A brief pause. That's why we're here. Vale San did not understand. You have already demonstrated your capabilities, he said. The Dominion has withdrawn. Your objective appears complete. Cortez's eyes did not change. No, she said quietly.
That was only the first objective. The chamber temperature seemed to drop. What is the second?
Vale San asked. The ambassador leaned forward slightly. Context. Behind Cortez.
A projection activated. Not a tactical map, not a military diagram. Historical data. Human expansion routes. Colony locations.
Trade networks. Migration patterns. Overlaid with something else. Alien territorial boundaries. Conflict zones. Areas marked with one repeating annotation. Low strategic value, Cortez spoke calmly. Most major civilizations categorize human colonies the same way. She gestured too far apart, too lightly defended, too decentralized. Another gesture, expendable. She looked directly at Vale San. Eden 47 wasn't attacked because it was important. Pause. It was attacked because it wasn't. Vale San understood immediately. You believe other powers may attempt similar actions? Cortez nodded. They will. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next year.
She leaned back slightly, but eventually. Someone always tests the edges. The projection changed. It now showed the recent Dominion losses. Then a simple line appeared beneath it. Response time.
72 hours, Cortez's voice softened. That's what this meeting is about. Vale San felt a growing unease. You wish the Concord to record this event? Yes. Why? Cortez did not hesitate. Because you're the only civilization everyone believes. The Kethari Concord had existed for millennia as neutral observers.
Their records were considered unbiased historical truth across hundreds of species. If the Concord reported something, the galaxy accepted it. Cortez continued, we don't want a reputation for aggression. Pause. We want a reputation for certainty. Vale San decided to ask what Dominion Command had not. The kinetic event you demonstrated.
He said, was that your maximum capability? There was a long pause. Then Cortez answered. No, the word was quiet. Not dramatic. Not threatening. Just factual. She touched the console. The projection changed again. Now it showed the Aegis of Earth's internal structure, layers upon layers of systems the Concord had not detected. Deep mass reservoirs. Dormant energy. Cores. Contained objects labeled only. Strategic options locked. Cortez spoke carefully. The kinetic strike you observed required 31 hours of preparation. Another pause. We also maintain responses that require less than 3 minutes. No one in the Concord chamber moved. Cortez deactivated the projection. We didn't come here to threaten anyone, she said. We came to establish a boundary. She leaned forward. Human colonies are not weak. Pause. They are patient. Another pause. And Earth is very close. Vale San studied her. You evacuated the survivors before acting, he said.
You avoided civilian targets.
You allowed the Dominion to withdraw. Cortez nodded. We always will. Why? The answer came without hesitation. Because the moment we stop caring about who's down there. She let the sentence hang, then finished quietly. We become the thing everyone's afraid we are. Cortez's tone remained calm. But there's something the Dominion misunderstood.
She brought up the final image. Eden 47, before the attack. Cities, oceans.
Lights at night, then the current image. Glass, ash, silence. Her voice did not change. They thought they destroyed a small colony. Pause. They destroyed one of our homes. Another pause. and humans don't measure loss in strategic value. Vale-san felt something shift in his analysis. Human power was not just technological, it was emotional. Every colony was treated like part of Earth, which meant every attack was personal. He asked the final question: if another power attacks a human colony,
what would your response be? Cortese looked at him for a long moment, then she answered, that depends. Pause. Did they evacuate the civilians first?
The Aegis slowed its approach and held position near the conquered vessel close enough for visual observation.
Then, without warning, a section of its hull opened. Not a weapon port, a launch bay. From it emerged a small convoy of ships, medical transports, habitat carriers, construction modules. Cortese spoke again. We didn't just come to respond. Pause. We came to rebuild. Projected trajectory.
Surface of Eden 47. Human engineers were returning, not soldiers. Builders. Cortese's final words were simple. Please record this accurately, observer.
She looked directly into the Concorde camera. Humanity retaliates. Pause. Humanity rebuilds. Another pause. Humanity remembers. Transmission ended as the Concorde began compiling its official record. Long-range sensors detected new traffic entering the system. Not Terran, not Dominion, multiple signatures, several alien civilizations, neutral powers, regional empires, and independent alliances, all approaching Eden 47.
Requesting diplomatic contact with Earth, Vale-san stared at the growing list of incoming vessels. Because the galaxy had just learned 2 things. Humanity could destroy infrastructure across 6 systems, and humanity would cross the stars to rebuild a broken world, which raised a question no one had considered before. Were humans becoming dangerous?
Or were they becoming the center of something much larger? In the weeks that followed, Eden 47 became the most crowded system in that region of space. Not with warships, with observers. Diplomatic vessels from 12 civilizations established high orbit holding patterns. Trade envoys arrived without cargo.
Scientific delegations requested environmental access.
Even minor border states' powers that had never previously acknowledged humanity sent representatives. They had all come for the same reason, to see what humans did next.
Because power could be demonstrated in a moment, but character that took time. From orbit, Eden 47 still looked wounded. The glassed continents reflected sunlight like scars. Atmospheric ash had thinned but not vanished. Entire coastal regions remained dark where cities had once been, but there were new lights.
Terran construction arrays deployed in orbit first vast modular platforms unfolding from the Aegis launch bays. Automated fabricators began processing debris, turning shattered station fragments into raw material. Then the surface work began. Atmospheric processes descended to the worst impact zones, releasing engineered microorganisms designed to break down toxins and restore soil chemistry. Ocean purification drones spread across the coasts.
Terraforming towers rose where bombardment had scorched the land to bedrock. The work was slow, precise, and completely open to observation. No military perimeter, no restricted orbital zones. Humanity was not hiding the process. They wanted it seen. Observer strategist Vale-san remained in system under extended mandate. The Cathari Concorde had elevated Eden 47 to priority historical event status, a designation reserved for moments that reshaped interstellar political understanding. He recorded everything: the Dominion withdrawal, the kinetic demonstration, the rebuilding. But what interested him most was something smaller. The first transport returning colonists. 32 days after evacuation, the first civilian ship arrived from Seoul. It was not large, not ceremonial, just a standard Terran colony transport carrying 3,000 survivors who had chosen to come back. The Concorde intercepted the docking broadcast. Eden 47 Return Group Alpha requesting descent clearance.
The response from Surface Command was immediate. Welcome home. Vale-san replayed that exchange several times. Not welcome back, welcome home. The Varkic Dominion did not send a diplomatic vessel, but they were watching. Long-range surveillance confirmed continued Terran activity.
No military expansion, no forward fleet deployment, No territorial claims beyond PRE existing human boundaries. The Dominion Strategic Council updated its human classification. Previous designation. Expansionist minor power new designation. High response defensive civilization additional note. Engagement recommended only under conditions of overwhelming necessity. The Dominion had lost 6 systems worth of infrastructure and gained something far more valuable. Clarity, 71 days after the impact. A single Dominion diplomatic ship entered the Eden-47 system. It did not approach the Aegis. It requested landing clearance on the surface. Human command approved immediately. Observer drones from the Concorde were permitted to record. The meeting took place in a temporary administrative structure overlooking one of the reconstructed coastal regions on one side, Ambassador Leon Cortez on the other. Dominion Envoy Commander Varric Thuan, the Dominion officer, spoke first. You have demonstrated your capacity for strategic destruction. Cortez nodded. We have. A pause. Varric Thuan continued.
Yet you rebuild the same location you defended. Yes. Why? Cortez looked out the window. Workers moved across the shoreline.
Construction drones hovered above half-finished structures. Children evacuees already returned ran between habitat modules. She answered quietly, because if we only destroy... Pause. Then the destruction wins. The Dominion officer studied her for a long moment, then said something no Concorde observer had expected to hear. The Dominion will not target human colonies again. He hesitated, then added, not because of your weapon. Another pause, because you came back, months later. The Concorde completed its full analysis. Human power did not come from fleet size, or technology alone, or even their willingness to escalate. It came from a pattern no other major civilization exhibited. They absorbed loss without abandoning territory. Most empires contracted after catastrophic attacks. Humans reinforced. Most species abandoned high-risk regions. Humans rebuilt them stronger. Most powers used demonstrations to deter further conflict. Humans paired demonstrations with recovery, which created a dangerous equation. Attacking a human colony did not reduce human presence. It increased it 6 months after the attack.
Earth released an open interstellar address. Ambassador Cortez delivered it from the rebuilt capital of Eden-47. The broadcast was translated into 412 known languages. Her words were simple. Humanity does not seek conflict. We expand because we are curious, because we hope, because we believe the future is larger than any one world. She paused, standing against a backdrop of a city still under construction. But understand this clearly, where humans live, Earth is present. Another pause. Distance does not weaken us. Final line.
It connects us. The recording became required diplomatic reference material across multiple civilizations within a year. Observer strategist Vale San prepared his closing report. He summarized the sequence. A minor colony destroyed. Civilian evacuation prioritized. Single platform strategic demonstration. Non-civilian targeting. Immediate reconstruction. Open transparency. Diplomatic normalization. Then he added a personal annotation, something rarely done in Concorde records. Humanity's strength is not their weapons. He paused, then finished.
Humanity's strength is that they act like every loss matters.
9 months after arrival. The Aegis of Earth finally prepared to leave Eden-47. There was no ceremony, no parade, no announcement. The massive vessel simply powered its engines and began the long return trajectory toward Sol. As it passed the Concorde observation position, a brief transmission arrived. No video, just a voice. Ambassador Cortez, Observer Vale San. Thank you for recording accurately. A pause. History matters. Then the channel closed. Years later, Eden-47 would become one of humanity's largest frontier hubs, not despite the attack. Because of it, trade routes expanded. Alien embassies opened. Joint research projects began. Several neutral civilizations established cooperative outposts nearby. The system that had once been considered low strategic value became something else. A meeting place, a symbol, A warning. Across the galaxy, military academies began teaching a new strategic principle: never attack a human colony. Not because humanity was the strongest species, not because their weapons were unmatched, but because humans responded in a way that changed the equation. They did not retreat. They did not forget. They did not abandon their dead, and if forced to choose between destruction and rebuilding, they would do both. In the official Concord archives, the Eden 47 event was categorized under a new classification: Human Strategic Doctrine Definition. They will answer immediately. They will answer proportionately, and when it's over, they will still be there. End of story.